Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well, or at least better than I am at the moment because I'm full of man flu, but there you go. Now, the topic of today's video is once again music theory, so if that doesn't interest you, then you're probably not going to enjoy this video. Personally, myself, I love music theory. I'm a bit of a geek about the subject, to be honest with you, and I think that stems from the fact that I always loved understanding how things worked. I mean, even when I was a kid, I would get a new bike, and within a week it would be in bits and put back together again several times because I wanted to understand how the gears worked, what made the brakes work, all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, just having an understanding of what I was doing and how stuff worked has always just been part of me, really. And obviously I brought that with me to the guitar when I started playing it. And what I want to talk about today, if you have an interest in music theory, and I'm assuming if you're still watching you do, are the three basic principles that I kind of extended from and extrapolated from to gain all the theory knowledge that I've got at the moment. And first and foremost, you got to talk about the chromatic scale. I first discovered this on a wall chart in a school music room. And as soon as I kind of saw it, I began kind of figuring stuff out from it. Well, here's some information on how I did that. Okay, this is the chromatic scale. It's essentially the basic DNA of all music. It goes C, then C sharp, which is also D flat, D, D sharp, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G flat, G, G sharp, A flat, A sharp, B flat, B, and then back to C again. Each step along this scale is represented as one fret on the guitar, and once you know this, it becomes quite easy really to figure out where all of the notes are all along the fretboard, like this. And this knowledge does come in handy in many ways. For example, if you were to play a G, a C and a D chord, you would know exactly what notes were in those chords, and that is useful because if you were to add together all of the notes in the chords, you would get a scale. And if you were trying to figure out what some lead guitar parts were that were played over the top of the G, C and D chords, now you know exactly which notes to look for and where to find them on the neck. It takes all of the guesswork out of the process. Another use for this information, amongst many, is to understand the relationships between the notes in a chord. For example, here's our G major chord again, G, B and D notes, you can see are in it. And if we map those notes out along the length of a single string, effectively measuring how far apart they are, you can see that between the G and the B note there is 4 semitones, and between the B and the D note there are 3 semitones. And now we know that any major chord is made up of a root note, in this case a G, then you go up 4 semitones, then you go up 3 semitones. This will enable you to figure out what notes are in any major chord. And that might just be the information you need to figure out which notes to land on in a guitar solo to sound strong against the underlying chord. There really are no end of uses for this information, and it all stems from a basic knowledge of the chromatic scale. Another thing that I very quickly began to figure out from the knowledge that we've already amassed there, where the notes are on the neck, how the chromatic scale tells you where the notes are on the neck and tells you what notes are in chords and what scales will go with those chords. You also begin to get an understanding of the whole topic of intervals. Here's some information on that. Okay, let's take a look at that scale again, the one that we made from the notes of the G, C and D chords. Here it is. It's called the G major scale, by the way, and the notes are numbered like this. And if we map those notes out along the length of a single string, we can get an idea of what is being spoken about when musicians talk about a second or a fourth or a sixth or all of those kind of interval names that we hear from time to time and maybe don't understand. You can see, for instance, that a second is simply a 2 semitone interval, 2 frets. A third is a 4 semitone interval. A fourth is a 5 semitone interval. A fifth is a 7 semitone interval, a sixth is a 9 semitone interval, seventh is 11 semitones, and an octave is 12 semitones. And now, whenever you hear anyone talking about a chord that's got a flat third or a sharp fifth or a flat fifth or a flat seventh or any of these terms, you've got some idea of what's going on, and you can possibly figure out where your fingers need to go on the neck of the guitar to play such a chord without having to look up a shape. And what's more, because you understand where you're putting your fingers, you're more likely to remember the shape and be able to make use of it in future. It won't just become that funny chord for that song that you learned 6 months ago and you can't quite remember the next time you need it. And all of this knowledge is based upon the foundation of having a solid understanding of our friend, the chromatic scale. And speaking of chords, then understanding how chords relate to each other leads me on to the next big important music theory fact that you need to get your head around, the 1-4-5 relationship. Here's some information pertaining to that. Okay, remember those 3 chords we looked at earlier, G, C and D? Here they are again, but as bar chords this time. And if we look at where the G, C and D notes fall in the G major scale, here they are, you can see that they are the 1st, 4th and 5th notes of the scale. This is why the G, C and D chords are known as the 1, 4 and 5 chords. And this is a very, very important relationship in music. These 3 chords in any key, the 1, the 4 and the 5 chords, are the 3 major chords in any given key. So it helps to know what their relationship is to each other and how it looks on the neck of the guitar, which is like this, basically. And now that you know this relationship on the neck of the guitar, it makes it very easy to figure out what chords are likely to occur together. This is obviously helpful if you're trying to write a song, but it's also valuable if you are trying to figure out what chords might be in a song that you're trying to learn. Equally, if you need to change the key of a song to suit a singer's voice, to transpose it, then understanding that you just move these same relationships up and down the neck makes it much easier to do that kind of thing, even on the fly if necessary. Now, that gives us an idea of what is going on with the 3 major chords in the key, but we also need to look at what's going on with the minor chords. Any key has both major and minor chords, and the relationship between the major chords and the minor chords is what we're going to look at next. So now we know the 3 major chords in any key and how they relate to each other and what that relationship looks like on the neck of the guitar. What about minor chords though? Well, this is where we kind of take a little detour. As well as all of this theory that I was learning, I was also picking stuff up by ear, just little kind of riffs and tricks and licks and runs that might look a bit like this. And it didn't take me long to figure out that all of those kind of things were based upon this little shape here, which I soon realised was called a pentatonic scale. So let's have a look at how the pentatonic scale kind of feeds into this chord relationship information that we're putting together. Right, let's begin by looking at the pentatonic angle of all of this. Lurking within our G major scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, there are 3 major pentatonic scales: the G major pentatonic scale, the C major pentatonic scale, and the D major pentatonic scale, as you can see here. And not surprisingly, lurking within each of those pentatonic scales, there is a major chord associated with that scale. G major pentatonic contains the notes of G, B and D, which gives us a G major chord. C major pentatonic contains C, E and G, which gives us a C major chord. And D major pentatonic contains the notes of a D major chord, D, F sharp and A. But also lurking within these pentatonics, we have another chord. Inside the G major pentatonic, you'll also find E, G and B, which gives us an E minor chord. C major pentatonic also contains A, C and E, which give us an A minor chord. And finally, inside the D major pentatonic, you will find a B minor chord, B, D and F sharp. So essentially what we've got are three major chords, G, C and D, along with their relative minor chords, E minor, A minor and B minor. And these chords of G, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor and the F sharp diminished, we won't worry about that one for now, are the 7 chords within the key of G major. And all you got to do to find the chords in any key is go for your 1, 4 and 5 chords, the relationship that we looked at earlier, and then find their relative minors, simply by going to each of those 3 chords, the 1, 4 and 5, and playing a minor chord 3 frets below. Basically, E minor is a minor chord 3 frets below G major, A minor is a minor chord 3 frets below C major, and B minor is a minor chord 3 frets below D major. And there you have the main major and minor chords in any given key. So there you go, by knowing that 1-4-5 relationship and the relative major-minor relationship, that's the third music theory fact that I'm kind of bigging up here, then you can work out what chords are in any key. Almost. There is that diminished chord that I kind of glossed over there. So let's have a look at that before we move on. That F sharp diminished chord, it's quite often played as what's called an F sharp minor 7 flat 5 chord, which looks like this. Now I distinctly remember the first time I looked that shape up when I had to play it in a song, and it just struck me, well, that's nothing more than an A minor chord with an F sharp bass note. Well, that's easy enough, isn't it? Because if you're playing electric guitar, chances are you're going to be playing with a bass player, so you get them to play the F sharp note, you play the A minor chord on top of it, and, you know, everything's sorted. You know, Bob's your uncle, as they say. So, you know, once you know that any minor 7 flat 5 chord is just basically a root note with a minor chord 3 frets above it, you know, where's the problem? It's little theory hacks like that really can make your life easier. So, from those 3 basic music theory kind of nuggets, the chromatic scale, the 1-4-5 relationship and the relative major-minor relationship, you can gain a whole wealth of and depth of music theory knowledge. You can understand where notes are on the fretboard. You'll understand the major scale. You'll understand chordal harmony. You'll understand intervals. So, you know, if someone was to say to you, oh, yeah, play a flat 6th there, or you need to play a flat 5th there, or a flat 3rd, you understand, you can speak that language, and you can do it a lot more quickly. You'll understand key theory, and, you know, once you've understood key theory, then, you know, you've got most of the heavy lifting done to understand things like modes, and, you know, that is a big thing that does tend to confuse people. I found it's one of the top subjects I get people coming to me for lessons asking to explain, and, you know, it's the best thing about all of this is that it's not difficult. It really isn't. It's not on a par with quantum physics or advanced calculus. It all just kind of follows quite easily on from that early influence I had from the music room chromatic scale wall chart. And once you learn how to apply this sort of stuff, you gain just, it's not like solutions to problems. You know, it's like the problems just don't become problems in the first place because you just find that you know what to do because it's obvious, because it all adds up. So there you go. There are my 3 important music theory facts that, kind of everything else I think stems from. It certainly did with me. These were the seeds that grew in my mind to help me understand music theory. I hope you found this video enjoyable, useful, and possibly even a little bit inspiring if, like me, you are a bit of a theory geek. If you would like some tailored one-to-one guitar tuition, then give me a shout via the details at the end of this video. If you live on Teesside in the northeast of England, you can come along for a face-to-face lesson, or wherever else you are in the world, you can have a lesson via Skype, and whichever way you do it, your first lesson is free, so what have you got to lose? I'll also just take this opportunity to mention that there are courses for sale on my website. There's the URL and the link is in the description box below. Basically, there's a course on making the modes easy, which, as you've hopefully seen, that none of this music theory stuff is difficult, but there's the course that will kind of give you a kickstarter on that. And if that's a little bit rich for your palate and you just want to get into playing some entry-level lead guitar stuff, then there's a course on that as well. It's called Play Lead Guitar the Easy Way. Both are available from that URL, and what's more, you get free previews on the Udemy tuition platform, where people saying all kinds of nice things about these courses, by the way. 4 and 5 star ratings, free previews. Check them out, see what you think, and why not treat yourself. And with that, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you for watching, and I do look forward to seeing you all again next time around. Bye for now, folks.